Oompaville. This is the popular religion people are calling a cult. Now, I don't want to necessarily start this off with me talking the whole time, but let me just say this. I need you to have some context as to my bias. I am very biased about this, but I'm very open to information. I believe they're a cult. I mean, when you have some of the beliefs that they have, it's hard not to call it a cult. So yeah, we're just gonna go with that. I also know someone who grew up in the Mormon faith and who left the Mormon faith. She's still a good friend of mine since I was a kid. I have an interview with her on my channel about kind of like how that all went down. Anyway, that being said, I'm attempting to keep an open mind. I do have a slight bias, but I can set it aside a little bit. So we're just going to see what's said and go from there, okay? Is that a deal? Cool? Yeah? All right. Come on. All right. We got this. Let's go. God, it's early, y'all. It's early. It's 3:30 in the morning. Let's go.
Mormonism with the Church of Latter-day Saints is one of America's first homegrown religions. And there is a lot of discourse in regard to Mormonism online. And there's very public hatred and accusations of cult-like behavior. I'm not talking about these things or bringing up negative things to incite any sort of hatred or whatever. I believe that people should be able to pragmatically include religions or religiosity or philosophy or whatever they believe into their lives to make their lives better, to decide what their reality is and how they will live their life, regardless of what you believe. And I do not want to contribute to anything objectively negative. That being said, this is a religion, and religions have long histories of absolute insanity, all of them, every single one of them, and they're all worth learning about, in my opinion, and talking about. And some are a little more insane and off the wall and entertaining than others. For example, Scientology is batshit. So believe whatever you want. I have friends that are ex-Mormons and I have friends that are Mormons, and they're all good people. But for today's video, we're going down the Mormon rabbit hole, and it is absolutely mind-boggling. Most of you are familiar with rabbit holes, conspiracy rabbit holes, icebergs, things like that. We've talked about Scientology before in the past, and I plan on
Oh, I need to watch that. You guys know that I keep talking about it, but I haven't done any content on it. And Scientology is wild. I've gone down 2 rabbit holes on my own, which is Scientology and Mormonism, just to be like, what the actual. I'm trying to understand how people accept some of these, because they have some of their beliefs are just like a little out there. Just a little. Now, that being said, I don't want any hate for anyone. If you are a Mormon, I'm not disrespecting you. I mean, hey, believe what you want to believe. If you want to believe anything, no matter what your religion is or your beliefs are, you know, you're entitled to those. I'm also entitled to disagree or, you know, poke a little bit of fun, okay? I poke a little bit of fun about everybody. However, anything, and I say this all the time, anything that has the ability to be taken advantage of, used, corrupted, will without fail. So any religion, no matter how true and sincere it is, no matter how much you agree with it, someone is going to step in and they're going to twist it in order to get their way, to get money, to get power, to get women, to get men, whatever. Anything that can be corrupted absolutely will. That's why we can't have nice things, because people are people-y. Yeah. Anyway, he's not wrong. Let's go.
rabbit holes, icebergs, things like that. We've talked about Scientology before in the past, and I plan on doing all the Abrahamic religions. Just kidding. I'll get killed. But like, some of them, I want to talk about everything, but also I'm a dumbass. A lot of Mormons don't even know that what we're about to talk about even exists. This isn't about individuals. It is about...
I'm gonna pause a lot. I'm sorry. With some of my knowledge and the things that I know, he's not wrong. There are some core basics to the religion, the origins of the religion, that some Mormons, especially the non-orthodox, the more light-hearted Mormons, don't know. They literally don't know, because if you're not hardcore into the religion, like I'm saying, like you've drank the Kool-Aid and you've done all the things and you're a part of like the inner sanctum. If you're not part of that, there's stuff you wouldn't know unless you went and did your research. And a lot of people aren't necessarily going to do their research because a lot of people don't want someone to see people saying negative things about what they believe. So it's just a thing. But he's not wrong. A lot of people don't know this, and they're active in the religion. They actively, I'm a Mormon. They don't know this. Wait till you hear what it is. I know what he's saying. I know what's coming.
Even know that what we're about to talk about even exists. This isn't about individuals. It is about the institutional history of Mormonism. And it is very interesting and crazy. Every major religion has dark chapters. The Catholic Church has the Vatican archives, which we've covered before in a previous video. The Crusades, centuries of cover-ups. Islam has schisms and violent extremist offshoots. Buddhism even has militant nationalists in Myanmar. And Christianity broadly has the Inquisition, the Salem witch trials, and the prosperity gospel grifters of the modern day. Just to be clear, I am a Christian. I did not grow up in a religious household whatsoever, so I don't really have the classical Christian worldview. I am very enthusiastic about learning about religions and talking to people of other faiths and traditions and seeing what makes them tick and so on and so forth. So, you know, you might automatically hate me, whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't believe that that's I shouldn't say I don't believe that's a real thing because people definitely do that. But I think that this stuff is very fun to talk about and it is extremely applicable to your real life in a pragmatic way. That is believing in something far larger than yourself. And what makes Mormonism so interesting is that it is very helpful objectively to a lot of people, but it's also unique because it's young enough that we have documentation. All religions have a lot of wild, insane, wacky shit.
Yes.
But Mormonism, it's like pretty new. We've got newspaper articles, audio recordings, SEC filings. Most religions' sketchy origin stories happened thousands of years ago through oral traditions. Mormonism's happened in 19th century America with printing presses and literacy. And that is what makes the rabbit hole so deep. We're not relying on ancient texts that were translated dozens of times. We have Joseph Smith's criminal record. We have Mark Hoffman's bombing on tape. We have the Council of 50 Minutes that were sealed for 172 years and released in 2016. I'm going to be approaching this without an anti-Mormon bias and rather sticking to documented history and how crazy that is. A lot of people believe that Mormonism is just another Christian denomination, but it isn't. It is a 200-year-old American-made religion with golden plates, seer stones, secret temple rituals, polygamous prophets, vigilante enforcers, mass murderers, and genuine conspiracies out of a crime novel. The rabbit hole goes from stuff that you've definitely heard of to things that I guarantee you probably have. By the very bottom, we're going to be talking about blood atonement murders, shadow governments, and forgers who killed people with bombs. For the most surface level thing, let's talk about Joseph Smith and the golden plates.
Yes.
A 14-year-old farm boy named Joseph Smith claimed the angel Moroni appeared to him in 1823 telling him about golden plates. And these golden plates were buried up on a hill near his home in upstate New York. And 4 years later, on his fourth annual attempt, Smith retrieved the plates on the 22nd of September, 1827. Now, old boy Smith translated these stones, and his translation method was stranger than you might think. Smith placed a chocolate-covered seer stone, the same one he'd used for treasure hunting previously, into a hat, put his face into the hat to block out light, and dictated the Book of Mormon while the plate sat covered or in another room. Witnesses testified he often didn't use the plates at all during translation. They just sat nearby or were removed entirely from the formula. David Whitmer, one of the three witnesses, stated,
"The plates were not before Joseph while he translated, but seem to have been removed by the custodian angel."
The church has very famous artwork showing Joseph Smith studying the plates while translating, but there's conflicting reports as to whether or not the man was reading that thing. One of my favorite jokes that I've used for a long time is that Joseph Smith was the first iPad baby. And ex-Mormons love that. Joseph founded the Latter-day Saints Church on April 6, 1830. And by 1844, he'd accumulated 30 to 46 polygamous wives, some as young as the age of 14, several already married to other men. And on June 27, 1844, a mob stormed Carthage jail and killed him. He fired back with a smuggled pistol and wounded 3 attackers before dying. The church portrays Joseph Smith as a martyred lamb, but in reality, he was armed and fighting back. So that's a tidbit of information. We're going to be focusing on more and more progressively insane stuff. And if you want a full history of Mormonism, you're going to have to find that somewhere else. Now on to the book.
Okay, so I'm just going to say something. He forms this religion and then he immediately starts collecting wives. What I don't understand, okay, and this is just the God's honest truth. What I don't understand is how someone's like, hello, I don't know where that accent came from. Hello, I have a new religion. I'm going to marry your wife. Even though she's married to you, she's now married to me. She's mine. And they'll be like, oh, okay. Like, another thing that I really want to know, because I've noticed this lately, is some of the, like, I saw a picture of Casanova recently, and he was, like, not an attractive man. So there's got to be something. These are not attractive people here. And I just don't understand. Like, were they just bored and desperate then or something? To where they're like, oh, it's a dude. Yay. I don't know. I think that they were a little crazy. Maybe they were just seeking, if I do this, maybe this is the answer to all of my curiosities as to what the heck I'm doing on this earth. I don't know. I just think they were a little crazy. He went and gathered crazy. And yeah, he was fighting back. He was notoriously a criminal. And these plates, some of the witnesses have said after the fact that some of the things that are in the religion based on him reading the plates and stuff is not true. And as well as, if I'm not mistaken, he's taken some religious text and he's kind of adapted it to his feelings. Like, all of his stuff is not really, like, he basically made shit up is what it is. And people are like, oh, he's a martyr. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I have a thing against necessarily lifting up humans as these paragons of everything, and I'm very hesitant to listen to humans as to what I need to do with my life. I don't know. I just don't trust people. So for me to be like, in any religion that would like glorify some guy, it would take something super extreme, and this religion to me is not it. Like, I don't think there's ever a world where I would be like, that kind of makes a little bit of sense. Wait till you hear some of their doctrine and like what they believe will happen when you pass. If you don't already know, get ready.
And if you want a full history of Mormonism, you're going to have to find that somewhere else. Now on to the Book of Mormon, which claims to be a history of ancient peoples in the Americas from roughly 2200 BC to 421 AD, written on golden plates in Reformed Egyptian, which is a language that does not exist outside the claims of Mormons. These plates describe 2 main groups: Nephites, which were righteous and white-skinned, then the Lamanites, which were wicked and cursed with dark skin, who eventually became Native Americans. So you can see some of this is fairly problematic off the bat. So the claim is that there are Hebrew markers in Native American populations, but there is absolutely zero science to back that up. And the church changed the Book of Mormon introduction in 2006 from principal ancestors of Native Americans to among the ancestors, which some have interpreted as admitting the core claim was wrong without actually saying the core claim was wrong.
I mean, it's a very, very, it's common knowledge that the Book of Mormon has been changed by the elders or whoever is running the religion at the time, multiple times, especially in very recent history, to avoid people being like, you are insane, racist, hateful, like your core beliefs, your core part of the religious text is nasty, mean and nasty. And they're like, oh no, it's interpreted incorrect. Let's change it. And they just changed the wording. They've just changed it. And nobody's like the Bible has been the Bible for a long time. And I understand that translations aren't perfect and everything. I understand that. But basically, it's not really changed as far as I'm aware. They blatantly changed some of the core things about the Mormon religion and the text, the Book of Mormon. They've just rewritten it like, yeah, we're just going to change that. Some of their core beliefs and what is allowed and not allowed, they've changed that also to fit modern times, which to me is a huge red flag.
As admitting the core claim was wrong without actually saying the core claim was wrong. Another fact that we know through anthropology is the fun fact that there were no horses in the Americas while humans lived until the Spanish brought them. But the Book of Mormon mentions horses repeatedly. No steel, no wheeled vehicles, no wheat, barley, or silk. None of the cities have been found from the Book of Mormon, and archaeologists have spent 200 years looking only to find nothing. There were horses here, by the way, a long time ago, and then they left, and then they came back. Okay, guys? Okay. I love horses. They're beautiful. I had a horse named Tank once. Killed a goat with its bare mouth, teeth, ripped him up, ripped the damn goat up.
I own a lot of firearms and even more Tylenol. As a Tylenol American, I found my safe space at gump.club. Go to gump.club.
Now, what about the reformed Egyptian? It doesn't exist. Egyptologists examined the xxKaTxx document that Smith showed scholars, and their assessment is as follows. Gibberish. Possibly a crude imitation of various ancient scripts massed together. Smith could not get these documents authenticated. The professors did not accept it. Now, you're probably noticing a bit of a trend here, and the fact is that Mormonism is still very popular, and the church has to contend with people saying, this is all fake and not real. And since the church actually genuinely exists and it's its own sole entity, and there isn't a billion denominations like Christianity or Catholicism, we can see their retort and their stances change over time. And the church's official response to all of this is that spiritual witness trumps physical evidence. You're supposed to pray about it and rely on your feelings, your spiritual feelings, not facts. And when science contradicts your max, science doesn't exactly matter. What about polygamy? Polygamy always sounds like fun, but then you really start to think about it. And anybody who's spent a long time with a person of the other sex in a small house, probably it seems worse. The television shows, make it seem like a really entertaining sort of thing, but it seems like a absolute nightmare.
Husband Brady gives his wife Polly a kiss on the cheek. A few rooms over, a quick cuddle with wife Rhonda. Then a smooch for Robin, another for Rosemary, and finally, wife number 5, Nani.
Hey, everybody!
Welcome inside the world of Brady Williams, a polygamist unlike any you have ever met.
I really consider myself a feminist.
Mainstream offshoots of the Church of Latter-day Saints banned polygamy in 1890 to achieve Utah statehood. They had to. But fundamentalist groups like the FLDS still practice it to this day. Warren Jeffs, convicted child rapist and FLDS prophet, married 70 plus wives, some as young as 12 years old. And in 2011, he was convicted of aggravated sexual assault of a child and sentenced to life plus 20 years. And during the 2008 Texas raid on his YFZ ranch compound, authorities found audio recordings of Jeffs sexually assaulting a 12-year-old and discovered a pregnant 15-year-old carrying his child. And this freak still continues leading the FLDS from prison through letters and phone calls, which is crazy too. The FLDS is genuinely insane, and Warren Jeffs is a massive piece of shit, which you don't need me to tell you that, obviously.
Rule number 1, protect kids. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care when it comes to FLDS, disgusting. And if you're supporting Warren Jeffs, you're a piece of crap too. Yeah, I said it. That's how it is. Oh my gosh, he's just okay, I don't care. I don't care. You're gonna pray about it and pray about it while, he's doing all this. At no point in time did someone say, you know what? I care about my kid more than I care about this, pathetic piece of crap, who is using this religion in order to be a predator, basically, is what he's doing. With full sanction by the church. Because he's in charge, so no one gets to say anything. And then anyone who was against what he was doing was kicked out. All the guys were kicked out because we don't want competition, and all the women were shut down or they had to try to escape. And if they couldn't escape, they were silenced and treated like crap by other creepy women who were like, thank God he's going with these other people and he's leaving me alone now because he was a predator and a creep. He's a creep. Who condoned creepiness for other people if they supported that. It just is disgusting. Everything about it is disgusting. I'm glad he's in prison. He needs to rot in there. Disgusting. And the fact that people are like, oh, shut up. I don't want to hear it.
Warren Jeffs is a massive piece of shit, which you don't need me to tell you that, obviously. The 1953 Short Creek Raid saw the largest mass arrest of polygamists in American history. Hundreds of children were removed from families in a media spectacle that backfired politically. It's estimated that 30 to 50,000 practicing polygamists remain in Utah and Arizona today, and the mainstream LDS Church officially disavows them but shares the same theological roots and scriptures that justified the polygamy, because obviously my boy Smith was all about that shit. Through researching this, I've learned that most Mormons are social Mormons, and they don't actually follow any of the teachings. It's just, kind of a social.
Because if they were to dive into the actual teachings, they would be like, yeah, this is crazy. This is wackadoo. That's why. Sure, it's nice to really like some of their focus and their morals and stuff in an immoralistic world where ethics and morals are like out the window, and now sexualization of everything. It's nice to have something that makes you feel good and feel special. But if they even dive a little bit under the surface, they'd be like, I would hope sane people would be like, it's weird. This shit's weird, man.
Social structure that makes them feel like they belong. For example, I believe Dan McClellan is he's a scholar of the Bible, and he's very intelligent, talks on TikTok, and you've probably seen his videos. I found out that he was a Mormon recently, and I was like, how the f is that possible? But it turns out
I don't know who that is.
Social Mormons are a very real thing, and I don't know, dude. I'm a social gamer. All right, I like playing video games, but Mormonism is a little out there for me. Just a little bit. Just a little small amount. Take, for example, magic undies, aka sacred underclothing worn 24/7 by endowed members. These amazing garments are white. They cover the torso, the upper legs, all from temple ceremony. They are supposed to provide spiritual and physical protection. They look like bullshit. They look whack as They look straight out of the 1900s. I mean, 1800s. They really do. It looks amazing. They look very funny. Wow. I'm looking at them right now. Very important. Members of the Church of Latter-day Saints do not call these things magic, obviously, because they even find that offensive, I believe. That's what Google says. They get very offended when you say that the temple garments are magic, but they have a level of spiritual protection. And if we're thinking about this from a game design perspective, +10 spiritual protection, I would say that's a little bit of magic. All right, guys. And anything can be magic if it makes you feel better. Just a little bit.
Okay, so let's be completely clear. I don't know if he's going to address this, but it's very obvious what the purpose of these were. This was a way of incorporating modesty into the religion and making it a requirement. So if you notice that these garments cover specific areas of the body. So if you were to wear a shirt that's like a crop top, you would see the garment. So you wouldn't wear a crop top, right? Because you wouldn't want that sticking out because that's weird. So it prevents people from wearing revealing clothing for the most part, so they can be modest. That was the original purpose, but then they incorporated it into this like spiritual, like he says, magic in order to justify it. Like if someone's like, well, I am a devout Mormon, but I don't want to wear the underwear. And they're like, if you don't, you're no longer devout and you're kicked out of the community. Like they made it that extreme. And it's still required and it's not changed because they've already changed a lot. I would be completely shocked if they don't change it soon to be more modern undies, you know, if they continue with them.
Of magic in it. It's not bad. How about baptisms for the dead? Mormons perform proxy baptisms for deceased people who never joined the church, effectively telekinetically granting you membership to a religion that you never partook in after you've died. You can just add people to the
Miss me
list
with
of
that,
souls.
please.
That's amazing. I can't think of anything more fun than becoming a Mormon familiar. A living Mormon member stands in for the dead person in a baptism ceremony, and the deceased can then accept or reject the baptism in the afterlife. So it sounds optional because they can accept or reject, but the church's theological stance is that the temple ordinances are required for exaltation, creating pressure for the dead to accept. During the 90s and 2000s, Holocaust victims were posthumously baptized by Mormons, causing massive controversy with Jewish organizations.
Yeah.
The church promised to stop in 1995, then again in 2008, but members kept on doing it anyway. Now, why would they do this? Mormons believe that they're genuinely helping. Now, I can definitely see how it would be offensive to be the offspring of, potentially someone who was genocided in the Holocaust, and then you're baptized by a religion that banned black people from full participation in 1978 and also taught that Jews were cursed, which were people who they're baptizing. I can see how it's offensive from both sides, but I definitely think it's a good, they're like, let's help. Another interesting fact is that the church maintains one of the world's largest genealogical databases, available at familysearch.org, ostensibly for helping people discover their ancestry, but the primary purpose is for finding dead people to baptize. Members of the Church of Latter-day Saints are apparently encouraged to find ancestors and do their temple work. Now, by the way, just so you know, in the very beginning, I said that the Mormons a lot of them don't know any of this stuff. There will be a lot of comments, I'm sure, on this video of Mormons just being like, I don't do that shit, dude. This guy's so full of shit, man. Yeah, it's like a very common thing in Mormonism. It's just like, we don't do that. Like, of course, I'm sure you don't. I'm sure you don't. But it's a thing, and your church has been doing it for a long time, and they love doing it, and it's weird. Watch the Catholic video. All right, watch the Vatican one, and then watch the Scientology one. Okay, guys? A broken clock can be right twice a day. I used to say that in every single one of my videos. Anyways, you might be Mormon in the afterlife and not even know it. Someone you've never met might decide to baptize you posthumously. It's very strange.
Yeah, please don't. Thanks.
Consent is not asked for. You don't give consent, and according to Mormon theology, you are pressured to accept it in death. So those are the more surface level parts of the rabbit hole. Now we're kind of deeper and things are more controversial. We have the Mountain Meadows Massacre. On September 11th, 1857, Mormon militia and allies slaughtered at least 120 Arkansas immigrants. Men, women, and children all traveling to California. Only kids that were too young to be credible witnesses were spared, children under the age of 7. Attackers dressed as Native Americans to disguise Mormon involvement, and the militia tricked survivors into surrendering under white flag, promising safe passage. Then they systematically executed them. Isaac Haight sent writer James Haslam on September 7th to seek Brigham Young's counsel, and Haslam rode 300 miles in under 3 days, which is up to 18 hours daily, swapping horses at Mormon settlements as they dropped dead from exhaustion. And Young received him on September 10th and immediately sent the reply, "Do not meddle with them and let them go in peace." And the massacre happened the next day. Young's letter arrived 2 days too late on September 13th. And when Haight read it, witnesses said he sobbed like a child and could only say, "Too late, too late." So was the letter genuinely delayed, or did local leaders wait until after the massacre to send the writer knowing that they'd have plausible deniability? Historians debate, obviously. They debate Brigham Young's culpability. His rhetoric about blood atonement and defending Zion created the climate, but whether or not he ordered the massacre directly remains unclear. John D. Lee was executed 20 years later as a scapegoat, while other perpetrators lived freely, and the LDS Church calls it perhaps the most tragic episode in church history, but still resists full accountability.
This particular religion and Mormonism, I'm talking about fundamentalists, I'm talking about historically, are obsessively on board with scapegoating people. They'll pick somebody to take the fall for stuff, and then they give zero craps about it later. They're like, knowing full and well that they're guilty. Nobody takes accountability. Nobody's like, unless it's something that they think that that their followers are going to be excited about. Otherwise, they're like, they don't care. From what I've read and from what I've researched, they don't care. And I've researched enough that I know a lot of this. I did some of it. I didn't know about the letter, like that specific thing that happened. But I mean, like the it being too late and them trying to call it off. I didn't know that part. So there's still things to be learned, but it's a common recurring theme you'll see is them being like, all right, Bob, you're going to go ahead and, you're going to go ahead and take the fall and they're going to execute you. So thank you for your service and, enjoy your planet when you die, if you haven't heard about that part yet. So yeah, okay, bye. And Bob's like, the hell? Fine, anything for my planet.
Church style. Now more about Brigham Young. Brigham taught
Young
that some sins were so heinous, Christ's atonement wasn't even. The only way to salvation was to spill the sinner's blood upon the ground.
Brigham
Young
Young
said,
was...
if your neighbor wishes salvation, it is necessary to spill his blood. Spill it. Historical scholars link this doctrine to a climate of violence that led to over 100 extrajudicial killings in the Utah Territory, including Mountain Meadows. And the church later disavowed it, but the damage was obviously already done. Next, we have
the church tends to disavow things after the fact often. Like, oh, well, that didn't go over very well with the government, the public, law enforcement. We're going to disavow that. Better to ask for, disavowment than permission, right? I mean, it's kind of like a theme.
Mountain Meadows, and the church later disavowed it, but the damage was obviously already done. Next, we have another Brigham Young classic, and one of the most viral things about Mormons on the internet. This is the biggest hate piece you see. Brigham Young publicly announced in 1852 that black men could no longer be ordained to priesthood. Black people also were banned from temple ceremonies, endowments, and eternal marriage. So in essence, a total institutional ban from full participation in the religion of Mormonism. What exactly was Young's justification? Well, Cain killed Abel to gain advantage, so God cursed Cain's descendants, aka black people, to not receive priesthood until all the rest of Adam's descendants received it first. He taught that black people were less valiant in the premortal life and were being punished with dark skin and restrictions in mortality. Young even had some choice words on the penalty for a white-black interracial marriage. If they mingle their seed with Cain's seed, the law is that the capital punishment of death shall be inflicted. He advocated for killing people engaged in interracial relationships. Now, I know that America has a very, very long, violent history in regard to race and interracial relationships and all this stuff. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. It's more American shit. The ban lasted 126 years, from 1852 to 1978, and it was not ended due to social pressure or revelation, but rather, according to internal church documents, the church was facing protests, BYU sports boycotts, and public relations nightmares. And on June 8th, 1978, President Spencer W. Kimball announced that black men could receive priesthood. With now in modern times, 1% to 3% of Mormons are black. A 2013 church essay admitted the ban had its roots more in racism than revelation and disavowed all previous explanations, but there was no official apology. There was no accountability. It's just, we disavow the theories while continuing to venerate Brigham Young with statues, temples, and a university named after him, and blah, 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 blah. And current, classic type awesome stuff. They literally...
He was a racist, and everything that he was saying was because of his personal bias. And then they're like, yeah, well, it was because of his personal bias. It wasn't because of anything that like God told us. But yet they worship Brigham Young as this like paragon of whatever. And what's funny to me is, I'm not going to lie, it's funny to me that a religion that is completely against, like, why do people try to push themselves in spaces? This religion basically has shit on you for the entirety of its existence. In this particular case, why are black people like, I just really want to be a part of it. Oh my God. Why would you want to be a part of something like that? I personally wouldn't. There are religions that have no interest in me. I'm not going to go be like, you have to let me in. I want to be a part of it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be like, well, fuck you then. You know? In my personal opinion, I don't understand. And I'm not here encouraging the racism of the previous, you know, pre-disavowment Mormonism. I'm not in any way, shape, or form. What I'm saying is like, why would it be like, you know, I just don't get it. But I do understand why they disavowed it, because they were being excluded from like sports events and things like that, because you just can't be blatantly racist in some particular spaces. You just can't. And they were like, well, you know, we really want to participate in this stuff, so we better, like, you know, change it because it's convenient. There's a lot of like changing of core values of this religion based on convenience and so society pressure. I mean, it's pretty common.
You know, classic type. Awesome stuff. They literally said a broken clock still is right twice a day. They didn't say that. That's not true. Current members are seemingly taught the ban was a policy, not doctrine, and that past prophets were speaking as men and not prophets always when they were taught it. But unfortunately, to a lot of people, this creates a massive theological problem. If prophets can be completely and fundamentally wrong about doctrines for 126 years, how can they possibly be right about anything? But it's, you know, they're speaking as people. They don't like black people, but everything else they say is fine, I guess. I don't really know.
For now.
I don't know a lot about it. All I know is I think we read different Bibles. All right. Have you ever heard of Mark Hoffman, aka the Mormon forager / bomber? He was a master forager that created fake historical documents in the early 1980s that fooled everybody. The FBI, the Library of Congress, the Church of Latter-day Saints, church historians, and even polygraph experts. His forgeries were that good. He understood Mormon history well enough to create documents that filled fairly embarrassing gaps and confirmed critics' suspicions. The most famous of Hoffman's forgeries was the Salamander Letter in 1984, which was supposedly written by Martin Harris to W.W. Phelps, my great-great-great-grandfather. And you may remember earlier, the explanation is that Joseph Smith was led to the Golden Plate, so there was an angelic visitation. It was this massive holy thing. But Mr. Hoffman made it kind of goofy and weird and turned it into a magic / folk legend belief rather than the angelic visitation that was so venerated by the Mormons at the time. And this forgery was so scary to the Church of Latter-day Saints that they quietly purchased it for $40,000 to keep it controlled. So Hoffman's scheme was to create controversial documents, sell those documents to the church or wealthy collectors, and then use the money to fund his increasingly expensive lifestyle to buy time for the next forgery. In 1985, Hoffman was in debt and could not deliver promised documents. And on October 15th, 1985, 2 pipe bombs exploded in Salt Lake City. The first killed document collector Stephen Christensen, who'd been involved in Hoffman's deals, and the second killed Kathy Sheets, wife of Christensen's former business partner. She was the wrong target, and it was intended for her husband. On October 16th, a third bomb exploded in Hoffman's car and injured him. Police initially thought he was another victim, but investigation later revealed that he was the bomber. And that is what led to them discovering the forgery. They found microscopic alligatoring patterns in ink that proved modern manufacturing. By January 1987, Hoffman pled guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder, 1 count of theft by deception, and 1 count of fraud. He received a life sentence and is currently in prison. The Netflix documentary Murder Among the Mormons covers this case. One of the most disturbing parts of this is that the church purchased multiple of Hoffman's forgeries and kept them from the public to control the Mormon narrative. You see, they didn't care if they were true. They cared about the management of perception. And when they turned out to be fake, the church was embarrassed a second time. Once for being duped, and once again for suppressing documents that they literally believed were real. How about the lost 116 pages? Martin Harris, early follower and financier, kind of the Jeffrey Epstein of Mormons, lost the first 116 pages of the Book of Mormon manuscript. Joseph Smith claimed God revealed that enemies would alter the pages to discredit him if he retranslated them. Epically convenient excuse, I've got to say. Smith never reproduced them, and the Book of Mormon now starts at a later point in the narrative. Critics, like South Park, argue that he just couldn't remember what he had made up. So, Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Look, I'm sorry about losing the pages we worked on, Joe, but I'm ready to write it all down again if you translate from the plates.
The Lord said he is very angry with me for letting you take those pages.
He is? Dum 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 dum.
He said we must now translate from the plate of Nephi. So it will be the same basic story, but written a little differently.
Wow. If God got angry with you, then you must be telling the truth. Dum 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 dum.
Wait, Mormons actually know this story and they still believe Joseph Smith was a prophet?
Well, sure. The story proves it, doesn't it?
No, it proves he did make it all up. Are you blind?
This advertisement is brought to you by a dead Arnuki beast. Thank you to ZocDoc for sponsoring this video. Confession time. I've been meaning to book a doctor's appointment for a little while. I'm gonna pretend like I haven't been using ZocDoc for a very long time. Like the dentist appointment I swore that I'd do next month and actually did using ZocDoc. Or the checkup that I kept moving back for a long time and actually did because I was using ZocDoc. It's a free app and website that lets you search and compare high quality in-network doctors and book them instantly. Some appointments as early as that day. No awkward phone calls, no please hold, no waiting months to get seen. They have over 100,000 doctors across every specialty from mental health, dental health, primary care, urgent care. You can filter them by who takes your insurance, who's nearby, and if they actually have good reviews. I use ZocDoc myself, gotten everybody that I know to use it. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments. Go to ZocDoc.com/Oompaville and find instantly to book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Oompaville. We're getting a bit deeper. How about the Danites? Ever heard of the Mormon Vigilante Enforcers? A secret group that was formed.
Hold on. The fan is on. And all these little bitty hairs are tickling my forehead and driving me absolutely insane. So I just need to readjust for a second and hope that they stay off my forehead. That's why I'm putting the headphones so that they flatten them, I hope. There we go. See? Better? Sort of? Whatever. You get what you get and you don't throw a fit, okay? We're solidly into this video. You're committed, I'm committed. We're in a relationship, baby. Let's finish this.
Formed in 1838 in Missouri during escalating conflicts with non-Mormon neighbors. Thomas B. Marsh, a former church leader who defected, testified they vowed to support the heads of the church in all things that they say or do, whether right or wrong. You can totally see the cultish lines being crossed on a pretty consistent basis back in the 1800s, all right, guys? So we have these group of enforcers that are willing to stop at nothing to defend the heads of church, the Danites. They weren't just offensive, they burned approximately 50 homes, looted shops, and displaced 100 non-Mormon families from Davis County. On October 18th, 1838, they marched under arms in 3 groups to clean out opposition, and local citizens were obviously outraged. And on October 30th, 1838, there was the Haun's Mill Massacre, which was a retaliatory attack by a 240-man Missouri militia against a Mormon settlement. They killed 17 people, including 10-year-old Sardius Smith. And his killer said, "Nits will make lice, and if he had lived, he would have become a Mormon." Bodies were mutilated, women were assaulted, and property was stolen, and no Missourians were prosecuted. So why did this happen? Well, 3 days earlier, Governor Lilburn Boggs issued Executive Order 44, the Extermination Order, some Star Wars shit. The order said that Mormons must be treated as enemies and must be exterminated or driven from the state if necessary for the public peace. This order remained law in Missouri until 1976. So it was in retaliation to the Danites, and Joseph Smith initially endorsed the Danites, but later turned against them as violence spiraled out of control. But the damage was done. They'd established a pattern of vigilante enforcement that would follow Mormonism all the way to Utah. Ever heard of Porter Rockwell, the destroying angel of Mormondom? Joseph Smith and Brigham Young's personal bodyguard and alleged enforcer was Porter Rockwell, a man credited with killing more men than Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, Bat Masterson, and Tom Horn combined. Although that accuracy is debated, is, you know, ancient history at this point. Not really, it's pretty recent, but still, people just made shit up. Porter was a Danite member and deputy U.S. Marshal, and Joseph Smith promised if Rockwell never cut his hair, he'd never be harmed. He never cut it and died of natural causes. The Salt Lake Tribune claimed he participated in at least 100 murders. Historians question the number, but his reputation was quite violent. That's the kind of mother that them dudes was rolling with, all right? This shit is scary, man. I shouldn't even be talking about it. I'm about to drive through Utah. By the time this video comes out, though, I'll probably already have been back. TBH. This was recorded in like August. How about the Council of 50, a shadow theocratic government secret political organization founded by Joseph Smith in March of 1844, just months before his assassination? The official name is the Kingdom of God, and his laws with the keys and powers thereof and judgment in the hands of his servants. That is a bullshit name. On April 11th, 1844, Smith was received as king, priest, and ruler over Israel on earth. The Mormons believe that Utah is like Israel. This was not a symbolic title, by the way. This was a literal ceremony establishing J. Smith as a political and religiously sovereign. This dude was a God king. And the council planned for the Kingdom of God theocratic government to replace existing democratic systems in Utah. Unlike other Mormon organizations, the Council of 50 included 3 non-Mormon members initially, giving it a veneer of non-sectarian legitimacy because they're trying to start a whole new government and they kind of have to have that. But make no mistake, it was absolutely a theocratic shadow Mormon government. Their activities included the following: sending ambassadors to Russia, the Republic of Texas at the time, England, and France to negotiate for Mormon settlements, coordinating with Joseph Smith's 1844 presidential campaign, which was a f***ing joke, planning westward migration and establishment of more Mormon territorial government, discussing how the church would govern settlements and eventually the world. Then after Smith's death, Brigham Young took control and the council operated as a shadow government in Utah territory from 1848 to 1851, meeting regularly to make territorial decisions outside official democratic channels because, you know, there's a governor and stuff, and like the states have their own laws. They met sporadically until 1868, then essentially disbanded as Utah moved towards legitimate statehood. Their discussions and minutes were sealed from 1844 until they were opened in September of 2016. That's 172 years of secrecy, and when they were finally released, they confirmed what people who were critical of Mormons had long suspected. Early Mormon leadership planned for a theocratic government. They believed in divine right to rule and expected to eventually govern the entire world under Mormon law, the Mormon Caliphate. Smith's vision called it a theo-democracy, supposedly blending theocratic rule with democratic principles, but in practice it just means absolute power concentrated in the hands of the prophet king with a council of loyalists, rubber stamping decisions framed as divine will of the God king. It's laughable thinking about it now. We're working back that way though, to be honest. We're really, anyways. Now, on to the...
Before he gets any further, I don't know. And I'm only scrolling forward. Yeah, he does. So this right here shows me that he will likely get into some of the core beliefs, I think, of the religion. I am shocked that he hasn't touched on any of those yet, as in what they believe, like what the religion is all about, what they believe is like the end results after you pass away, what is the goal, all of that. And some of that stuff is very interesting to me because this religion is notorious for creating doctrine and explanations that justify behavior. They're more of an ask for not even forgiveness. Let's create doctrine that gives us permission to do what we've already done. They're very reactive, not proactive, in my opinion. It's just my personal opinion. But they're chock full of like frontier dudes who are like, we're in charge, and they basically forced everyone to adhere to it under threat of eternal damnation and or just straight up murder.
Though, to be honest, we're really, anyways. Now, on to the Lafferty brother murders in 1984. Ron and Dan Lafferty were both raised mainstream LDS, but after excommunication for polygamy beliefs, they joined the School of Prophets, which was yet another fundamentalist Mormon splinter group that taught blood atonement and plural marriage. In March of 1984, Ron Lafferty recorded what he called a removal revelation from God. And the revelation commanded him to kill 4 people, Brenda Lafferty, his brother Alan's wife, Erica Lafferty, Brenda and Alan's 15-month-old daughter, Chloe Lowe, another woman who opposed the brothers, and Richard Stowe, a church leader. Ron believed that Brenda was obstructing God's work because she'd encouraged Alan to stand up to his brothers and supported other family women in leaving the fundamentalist group. She was vocal and educated and just would not submit.
They
And
didn't
the brothers'
like that.
theology that made her worthy of blood atonement, which, as we've talked about already, is like a really early fundamentalist Mormon thing. July 24th, 1984, Ron and Dan drove to Alan and Brenda's apartment in American Fork, Utah. While Alan was at work, they found Brenda and the baby at home. They slit Brenda's throat, and then they killed the 15-month-old Erica the exact same way. Brothers then planned to kill the other two targets, but were interrupted and fled, and police eventually caught them in Nevada. At the trial, Ron was convicted and sentenced to death. He died in 2019 of natural causes on death row, and Dan was convicted and sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without parole, and he's still in prison. Prison, as opposed to prison. Rot. That's all I've got to say. Both brothers showed zero remorse. Ron maintained until his death that he was following God's commandment, and Dan had written extensively about the murders, framing them as righteous acts. These people are not, fit for modern society. The case even inspired John Krakauer's 2003 book, Under the Banner of Heaven, and the 2022 Hulu series. It exposed how early Mormon teachings about blood atonement, absolute prophetic authority, and divine violence can be weaponized by fundamentalists who take the theology to its logical extreme. The scary part is that there is a logical extreme there. There is objectively a roadmap of extremes in Mormonism. That's what's scary about it. It's a little bit scary. How about the Utah War of 1857 to 1858? President Buchanan sent federal troops to remove Brigham Young as territorial governor after reports of theocratic rule. In response, Young declared martial law and prepared for armed resistance. The Utah Territory at this time operated as a theocracy, not a democracy, and Young held religious and political power simultaneously. This is the period in which the Mountain Meadows Massacre occurred and which other things we've talked about previously. Eventually, though, it was resolved.
One of the things that I've noticed about Mormonism, I'm talking fundamentalists, I'm talking about extremists, okay? I'm not talking about this, what he calls the social Mormons. I'm not talking about people who, well, in general, some of their ideals are great. If you don't peel back the layers enough to actually see where any of it comes from, because the second you do, it's like, wait, what? So we're just going to give the social Mormons a pass. Anyone that's ever even bothered to look below the surface and stays, I'm judging you, yes. So these leaders set themselves up for ultimate rule every time. They label themselves in a way that in their religion is absolutely, you can't argue with them. You can't go against them. You can't tell them that they're wrong under threat of eternal damnation, right? Or in this life, physical violence. They've set themselves up for success, and they've set themselves up for literally, if they say something and someone's like, wait, what? They're like, oh, it was a revelation. That's what they call it. They call it a revelation. Oh, the prophet had a revelation. And now they've got this, predator in jail who's running the FLDS still. And they have people that are outside going, oh, y'all. It's just, it's so weird. I can't wait till he gets into what the actual fundamental beliefs of the religion are. And if you see some of their, what's it called? Like their little educational cartoon videos and stuff. It's wild. It's wild. It's absolutely insane. To me, it's my opinion, allegedly.
Mountain Meadows Massacre occurred and which other things we've talked about previously. Eventually, though, it was resolved without a major battle when federal troops were allowed in and Young stepped down as governor, but kept religious control, of course. Now, how about Joseph Smith's presidential campaign? We mentioned this in passing a little while ago, but Smith ran for president of the United States as
people are delulu, man. Yeah, I am in charge of a religion and I get people to follow me and I get all these women to marry me. Shit, yeah, I'll be the president because God said so. People that are this delusional that actually convince other people, do they believe the bullshit that they're saying? I don't think they do. I think that the core leaders that are I think that the people directly under these people believed the bullshit. I think the people making up the bullshit don't believe it. They know that they're lying. I don't think for 1 second they believe it.
We mentioned this in passing a little while ago, but Smith ran for president of the United States as an independent candidate in 1844.
Of course he did.
He advocated for overthrowing the U.S. government in favor of a Mormon-ruled theocracy if Congress didn't meet his demands. He prophesied that Congress would be broken up as a government and God shall damn them. The Council of 50 coordinated his campaign, and he was assassinated by a mob in June of 1844 before election. The theocratic ambitions were once again objectively real and totally true, and it's up and crazy. Now, we've repeatedly mentioned Joseph Smith's death. This is the event that officially is recognized as leading to that event, the Nauvoo Expositor destruction of 1844. June 7th, 1844, the Nauvoo Expositor published its first and only issue. It was run by former Mormon insiders and dissenters. The paper detailed Joseph Smith's practice of polygamy, criticized his theocratic rule over Nauvoo, and accused him of other various crimes. This led to Smith and the Nauvoo City Council meeting for 14 hours over 2 days, June 8th and 10th, to discuss the paper. At 6:30 p.m. on June 10th, they declared the Expositor a public nuisance and ordered its destruction. That evening, the marshal led approximately 100 men, including members of the Nauvoo Legion, Smith's personal militia, to the print shop. They dismantled the press, scattered the type, and burned remaining copies of the newspaper in the street. And destroying a printing press in 1840s America was not taken lightly. Freedom of the press was sacrosanct, and local non-Mormon authorities issued warrants for Smith's arrest on charges of riot. And when Smith and his brother Hiram surrendered to authorities in Carthage on June 25th, they were additionally charged with treason against the state of Illinois for declaring martial law in Nauvoo in response to the warrants. 2 days later, on June 27th, 1844, a mob stormed Carthage jail and killed both of the brothers. The Nauvoo Expositor incident is what directly led to Joseph Smith's death. He ordered the destruction of a newspaper that exposed his Mormon shit, his polygamy and theocratic ambitions, and that act of censorship resulted in charges that put him in jail, where he was then vulnerable to the mob. And the church frames his death as martyrdom, but critics frame it as consequences for silencing the press and accumulating unchecked power in the land of America. And also, he fought back. He was not a lamb. He fought back, for sure. The fundamentalists were not a pacifist people. That is for sure. Very objective.
Violent.
This is where things get a little more crazy. Okay, we're talking about legends and myths and potentially hoaxes and all kinds of stuff. And if you're a Mormon and you're watching, you're probably going to very much disagree with everything from here in, to be honest. But take, for example, the Kinderhook plates hoax, which is the claim that Joseph Smith fell for a fucking prank, and that's how Mormonism was started. A group of Illinois men created 6 fake brass plates with bogus engravings, buried them in a mound, and then discovered them. It was a test. Can the prophet actually translate ancient languages, or is he just making it up? Because we made it up. Cain got me. Smith took the bait. He examined the plates and claimed to translate part of them, said that they contained the genealogy of descendants of Ham, one of the most delicious of cured meats, and also one of Noah's sons. He was confident and he was very specific. Fast forward to the 1980s, scientists tested the plates and found 19th century brass with modern tool marks. The engravings were nonsense, scratched by blacksmiths having a laugh, and the prophet, it made him look like a fool. Now, obviously, the church has to respond to everything, so they said that maybe he was just speculating. Maybe he didn't really claim to translate them. But the historical record says otherwise. Multiple witnesses recorded Smith presenting his translation of the completely fake brass plates. This matters because if Smith couldn't tell the difference between ancient plates and a hoax made by frontier goobers back in the olden times, why would anybody ever trust his translation of the original golden plates when nobody ever saw it and that he just he couldn't, it's bad. How about the Book of Abraham?
Well, here's the thing. There were no plates in the beginning. Okay? So there's no plates in the beginning. He was translating. They didn't exist. That's how I feel. I don't think they ever existed. I think he made this shit. I think he made it all up. Period. So if I were him, I'd be a little bit more concerned that plates actually showed up in any way, shape, or form. I'd be very skeptical because I would have known that the original place didn't exist. So therefore, I would have known, unless he was, and here's the thing, I haven't decided. I think he was a manipulative piece of crap. But I also am curious if maybe he was just psychotic. Like maybe he was schizophrenic or psychotic or just a fucking asshole. I don't know. Whatever it is, it created this entire movement and religion based on bullshit and lies. And people believe it, and it makes me sad because it's like, it's the thing about, then he brought it up in the very beginning, that they have a historical record because this is a recent religion, right? It's a recent offshoot, or what do they call it? Spin-off of Christianity. Super spin-off. Like it went completely wicked wild. They replaced all the characters with their DEI hires in this religion, or minus the DEI hires, I guess. But point is that it's all made up, and they can prove it. And every time they go to prove it, the church is like, well, that didn't quite apply, and we have to go with modern times. People are like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Really?
Never saw it, and then he just like he couldn't. It's bad. How about the Book of Abraham and the Egyptian papyrus fraud? In 1835, Joseph Smith purchased Egyptian mummies and papyrus from a traveling exhibition. He then claimed to translate the papyri as writings of Abraham, but every Egyptologist who's ever examined them, starting in the 1860s, says it's a common Egyptian funerary text, the Book of Breathings, with zero connection to Abraham or anything else that the Mormons were familiar with. But the church still maintains the Book of Abraham as scripture, despite it being proven as total fraud. Then they introduced the catalyst theory. Maybe God used fake papyri to inspire real revelation. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Have you ever heard of Zelph in the White Lamanite? Well, Smith's group was traveling through Illinois with the Zion's Camp militia when they found bones in a burial mound, and Smith had a vision. He identified a skeleton as Zelph, or a white Lamanite warrior who fought under a prophet general and died in the last great struggle between the Nephites and the Lamanites. 7 members wrote it down. They were very impressed. The prophet could identify ancient warriors from bones through visions. But one problem is that the Book of Mormon explicitly describes the Lamanites as cursed with dark skin. It's like the whole point. God marked them so the Nephites wouldn't mix with them. So what exactly is a white Lamanite? A Lamanite who was righteous enough to potentially lose the curse? Then why did he die fighting for the Lamanites against the Nephites? I don't know. Do you know? Nobody knows. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's theology, and it doesn't make a lot of, just from a fundamental perspective. It also places Book of Mormon geography in Illinois, which contradicts modern claims about Central and South America. So Zelph is a pretty embarrassing plot hole in the whole thing. And every religion has such embarrassing plot holes. All of them, dude. I'm so grateful that my parents raised me my mom grew up Catholic, and my father grew up speaking to the trees and the bugs and stuff. He loves nature a lot, and he's just like, don't talk so much. That's the kind of guy that he is. Takes his shoes off, walks in the woods, bow hunts, blood on the face, spirit of the wild. That's my dad. And my mom grew up Catholic, and she's awesome. And I read the Bible, and I liked it a lot. I read Soren Kierkegaard, and I liked it a lot. If you read much more beyond that, there's a lot of plot holes. If you start following the institutions of man, oh my God.
That's right there. He just said it. That's what it is. You get somebody who arrogantly decides they're going to translate, explain, or corrupt and twist basic, like the Bible, into something for their own gain, or like it's corruptible once man gets involved. Because even if in the beginning, in this particular case, I'm not talking about Mormonism, I'm talking about Christianity. Even if the intention was good, I want to start a church. I want to, help people understand the Word of God. Just give it a few months, give it a few years. Somebody will step up and participate who will abuse the opportunity so they can make money, get power, whatever the case may be. Or just the arrogance of being like, y'all believe me, you stupid idiots. It will happen. Anything that can be corrupted will, because humans are assholes and pieces of crap. In general, not everybody. Some of you are pretty cool. I like to think I'm okay. I don't think that I'm corrupt and mean. Most of the time. I'm just kidding.
That there's a lot of plot holes. If you start following the institutions of man, oh my God, what the these people, you want me to believe that shit? You crazy son of a bitch. It's all about personal faith, brother. It's all about pragmatism. How do I feel good? How do I live my best life in accordance to morals and ethics? Anyways, talk about living the best life. How about the Adam God doctrine? Brigham Young taught for years that Adam is literally God the Father in flesh, and Adam came to the Garden of Eden with one of his celestial wives, aka Eve, and created humanity. This is the same God that Mormons worship. They worship Adam. But later church presidents completely reject this teaching, calling it false doctrine, because it creates an obvious, unresolvable theological contradiction. Was Young a prophet or not? The modern church, as far as I could find, has yet to address it directly. Joseph Smith also liked digging holes.
They don't like stuff. They tend to ignore it. They'll either change the doctrine, they will disavow stuff, right? Or they will be like, they just ignore the shit out of it. Oh, yes, that's a very interesting. And they just like walk away mid-sentence, and you're like, we asked you a question. They're like, and they just walk away. They don't want to. They don't want to address it, because that's what like I said. If you practice this religion, and if you peel back any layers, if you look even remotely underneath the surface, even a tiny bit, everything falls apart, and everything can be brought back to these particular prophets, the men, greedy, selfish. They're everything that they do is self-serving. Everything is self-serving. It is not to help their people. It is to help themselves. And it's very clear. And this is my very biased opinion about that. I truly believe that people have been led astray and indoctrinated with this insanity. That's my opinion. Be mad at me if you want. I'm allowed to be biased sometimes. People being told that their eternal life is based on something that is easily proven wrong and is clearly a manipulation makes me sick, because people are being led astray thinking that their eternal life, their eternal existence, that they're doing the right thing because they actually want to do the right thing, and they're just led wrong because people have no fucking shame. I don't know how else to say that. Like, shame on them for encouraging people, because if you can only, have eternal life and with the correct religion and the correct path, and they're purposefully leading people down the wrong path. Once you get into higher leadership in this religion, there is not a single way. There is absolutely no way that you believe the shit coming out of your mouth. There is no way. You just agree with it and you co-sign it because it's convenient, because you're now powerful in the religion. And if you disagree or say anything, you will lose your power and you're standing in the community in the religion. And they can't have that, because that's all that matters, because that's all that it is. It has nothing to do with actual religion. It's not, it's made up. Yeah, I know. I told you I'm biased, but that's how I feel about it.
Modern church, as far as I could find, has yet to address it directly. Joseph Smith also liked digging holes and had some folk magic early on in his life. Before claiming to find gold plates, Smith was hired as a scryer, using seer stones to locate buried treasure, which is hilarious. And convicted in an 1826 court case for glass looking, aka fraud, Smith drew magic circles for treasure hunting rituals, which was a practice associated with necromancy and occultism, and used the same chocolate-colored seer.
Did he just call it necromancy? Necromancy? Is that what you said? Is that what you meant? I've never heard it pronounced like that. My luck is that I've been saying it wrong in my head for the last 20-something years. And we'll go with 20-something.
associated with necromancy and occultism, and used the same chocolate-colored seer stone from his treasure-digging days to translate the Book of Mormon. The church released photos of the stone in 2015, finally admitting the rock and hat method, and critics see this as proof that Smith was a con artist who stumbled into a religious movement, and believers see it as God using the imperfect vessel, which is so convenient. Once again, man,
always
it's awesome.
convenient.
I love the convenience. Pragmatism, convenience. Wait a second.
You have to listen to the prophet because he is bestowed on this knowledge by God. His revelation is absolutely comes straight from God. However, once they're like, it's absolutely clear that he made this shit up, they're like, well, you know, nobody's perfect. So either you are the perfect speaker, messenger from God, directly from God, and God is perfect, and therefore you are a direct messenger from God, or you're imperfect and you made shit up, and yeah, I got it wrong. Oh well. You can't have both. But they don't tell them that.
I love the convenience.
Yeah.
Pragmatism, convenience. Wait a second. You're full of shit. Well, hold on there. Not everybody's perfect. We own a lot of land. We'll get into that too. That shit's crazy. How about Freemasonry? A little Mormon tie-in here with Freemasons. My nose itches a lot. Sorry, guys.
I'm going to tell you, I know about this. I know that they have ripped off a shit ton of Freemason symbols, signals, handshakes, rituals, you name it. They're very interconnected. So that it's like some of the founding somebody or another's either had a Freemason textbook that like gave them some insights or used to be a Freemason. I mean, that's there you'll see. I'm hoping he'll address that. Sorry, I just had to spoil it. Because I want to be honest, like there's some things that I know and I'm really excited to hear about, but I want to hear the details and I'm hoping he's bringing them. I'm sorry, maybe I should have been quiet.
How about Freemasonry? A little Mormon tie-in here with Freemasons. My nose itches a lot. Sorry, guys. Little spider web came out of my nose. The endowment ceremony includes secret handshakes, tokens, keywords, and oaths. Critics note striking similarities to Masonic rituals, which I've witnessed, by the way. I didn't even realize. I went to some Boy Scout shit one time. I wasn't a Boy Scout. I always thought they were getting molested and stuff. But I went to a Boy Scout thing and I saw all these people and they were standing around wearing shit. And I was like, what? No. Back there in front row. Come on now, bud. Come on now. Warren County, just outside of damn Skyline High School out there. Come on, the damn Masonic Temple down there, road down there. Come on now. People critical of Mormonism note striking similarities to Masonic rituals from the rituals of Mormonism, which is not surprising since Joseph Smith became a Freemason in March of 1842 and then introduced the endowment ceremony just 2 months later in May 1842.
Shocker, right?
The original ceremony included blood oath penalties. Participants pantomimed their own execution in 3 ways. They drew the right thumb across the throat in a slitting motion, which is a penalty for revealing the first token. Then they made clawing motions on chest to represent heart being ripped out, which is a penalty for the second token. And they mimed disembowelment by drawing hand across the stomach, which is the penalty for the third token if you hadn't caught on by now. Every member who went through the temple before 1990 performed these goofy-ass emotes and the accompanying words. In 1990, facing some media exposure and some uncomfortable questions, the church removed all penalties from the ceremony and also eliminated the 5 points of fellowship at the veil, which is a full body embrace with arm around shoulder. It's a bunch of weird shit, and they removed the Protestant preacher character who was depicted as being in league with Satan because he's a Protestant. And Protestants, we all know, are evil, I guess. I don't really know. I don't know.
So there we go again. Oh, people don't like it? There's public outcry about the weirdness. Okay, well, we'll just change it then. We'll just take it out. It's just a core belief and it's a core practice and it's a core... And in fact, it was initially described as absolutely necessary on penalty of death, dismemberment, and or like eternal damnation. It's no biggie. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Mm-hmm.
I know a lot about any of the more formal religions. All I know is that venerating pagan shit. I don't know. Church sacrament robes, church robes, veneration of... I really don't know what I'm talking about. Older members of the Church of Latter-day Saints often deny that the penalties ever existed, which gaslights younger members who ask about them.
Sure. Sure. No, he's right. The gaslighting. Uh-huh. Oh, no, that never happened. Oh, okay. It's documented. No, it's not. Oh, okay. I must be wrong. Yeah, of course. You're a leader. You know better than me. I mean, it's only documented like 30 places. There's video proof. There's photographic proof. There's actual proof. In fact, I was there. But you're right. I'm sure you're right. You said no. I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about. Sir leader, man, person.
Deny that the penalties ever existed, which gaslights younger members who ask about them. That seems to be a lot of what happens, is like they don't trust the internet, so they ask older people, and the older people are like, no, that didn't happen. But all this stuff's real, and there's evidence of it. So, and the official church position of this pagan nonsense is that Smith restored ancient Abrahamic ceremony. And the reality seems to be that he plagiarized Freemasonry immediately after becoming a Freemason and made up the ancient origin story. The timing is very suspicious. He joined the Freemasons and then immediately introduced nearly identical ceremonies with different theological framing. Genius. How about polyandry? Ever heard of that? Joseph Smith married other men's wives. Smith didn't just practice polygamy, he practiced polyandry. He married at least 11 women who were already married to other men. And these sealings happened while women remained married to and living with their first husbands. Smith sent men on missions and married their wives while they were gone. Sylvia Sessions Lyon, for example, is one woman that he polyandried. The justification for this is unclear, and the modern church downplays it very, very aggressively, as you can expect, because it seemed like he was really horny. That's what I think, but that's not a very good theological perspective. This one's short, but kind of funny. Brigham Young put oil in people's butt. It was called anointing them with oil for healing. Brigham Young reportedly believed in and administered consecrated oil enemas for health purposes, aka he just wanted to dig in your butt, twin. These are documented in historical records and were a combination of 19th century medical quackery and some strange religious ritual. They're not widely discussed for obvious reasons. It seems like to me maybe they just did like digging in people's butts. He was into that.
We're just gonna leave that one alone because there's other reasons that could potentially be Bye.
I'll heal you. Let me put my finger in your butt. How about the Oath of Vengeance? Part of the temple endowment ceremony from 1845 until the early 1930s was that participants swore an oath. The oath is as follows. You and each of you do covenant and promise that you will pray and never cease to pray to Almighty God to avenge the blood of the prophets upon this nation, and that you will teach the same to your children and to your children's children unto the third and fourth generation. The prophets are Joseph and Hiram Smith, who were killed by a mob after censoring a newspaper. And every member who went through the temple between 1845 and the 1930s swore this oath. They vowed to pray and teach their descendants to pray for God's vengeance on America, the government of the United States of America, which had failed to protect them and prosecute their killers. And every member who went through the temple between 1845 and the 1930s swore this oath in which they vowed to pray and teach their descendants to pray for God's vengeance on America. That's incredible. For nearly 90 years, faithful Mormons were ritually binding themselves to perpetual prayers for divine retribution against the United States. This is like crazy. Is this the Mormons or the Mujahideen? It's really easy to start to see and tie together where this sort of history of violence comes from. This climate is like, they're very extreme. The original fundamentalist Mormons were very extreme. Church President Heber J. Grant appointed a committee in 1919 to revise this endowment, and Apostle George F. Richards eliminated the Oath of Vengeance between 1921 and 1929, and this elimination of the Oath of Vengeance was formally implemented in the early 1930s and was ended. The church's official position now is that it was only a prayer for divine justice, not a call for personal vengeance. And once again, critics note that's a convenient distinction to draw after removing it.
Of course.
The oath taught 3 generations of Mormons to view the United States of America and the government there as their enemy because of these dudes who were killed or whatever. How about their own alphabet? The Deseret alphabet. Brigham Young commissioned a furry artist in the 1850s to 1870s to develop an entirely new writing system to replace the English alphabet. It was called the Deseret alphabet, a 38-letter phonetic system designed to make reading and writing more efficient. The real purpose is that this was linguistic isolation. If Mormons used their own alphabet, they'd be harder for outsiders to influence, and children would learn the Deseret alphabet first, which would create a cognitive barrier to English materials. You know, if they don't speak the same language, they don't have to abide by the same rules and laws. And in certain cases, immigrant converts could completely bypass English. Young invested heavily in this, and the alphabet appeared on road signs throughout Utah Territory, territorial coins, headstones, official documents, and books, including the Book of Mormon that was published in the Deseret alphabet in 1869. This shit is crazy, dude. It failed spectacularly. Only 500 copies of the Deseret Book of Mormon sold at $2 each, probably because nobody spoke that shit and it was dumb as fuck. It's an elder language. No, it's not. Members resisted learning the new writing system because they weren't as dumb as Brigham Young had thought. Also, the project was too expensive, and after Young died in 1877, the Deseret alphabet died with him, thank God. More cult stuff. Gotta say, that's pretty culty. How about mountain common law? Early Utah Territory saw a pattern of extra-legal killings justified as mountain common law, or vigilante justice, which was supposedly appropriate for frontier conditions. Defense attorney George A. Smith famously invoked common mountain English and mountain common law in murder trials. In practice, it was a code for blood atonement and honor killings in Mormonism, and when someone committed adultery, seduction, apostasy, or other serious sins, vigilantes could kill them and claim mountain justice, and judges some
Note that apostasy, if I'm not mistaken, that is basically anyone that isn't part of the religion, anyone that speaks against the religion, anyone that is against anything at any time, says anything against the prophet, anyone they don't like. They're shunned, and they're terrible people. Adultery? Bitch, listen. You have 17 wives. Shut up. You have 5 wives, 7 wives, 12 wives. I don't want to hear it. I don't hear adultery. Give me a fucking break. Get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry. I know I'm cursing, but get out of here with that crap. I don't want to hear it. How absolutely hypocritical. How hypocritical are these people? Multiple wives, that's what God wants. He talks about women obey your husbands, men love your wives. He talks about the relationship between man and woman. He doesn't say men love your wives, not wife. You love your wife like the person that you know, not your 18 wives, and split your time equally among them and procreate as much as humanly possible. And marry as young as you want. Just justify it later. Don't worry. You could disavow it some other time. The fuck? Stop. No. They justify. That's the name of the game, is they justify things after the fact. You find a way to justify later versus asking permission ahead of time. Just do what you want, whatever you want, as long as it's somebody that's a leader that's in charge. Those are the ones. They can do whatever they want. It's insane. Come on, please tell me you get into the background of what they believe happens to you in the afterlife and where it came from. I really want that. I'm hoping that's what this is here. Okay.
serious sins, vigilantes could kill them and claim mountain justice, and judges sometimes acquitted based on this defense alone. One example could be Howard Egan, who killed James Monroe for allegedly seducing his wife. The defense was that mountain common law justified it, and Judge Zerubbabel Snow, never heard of that name in my whole life, rejected the argument, but juries often didn't. This was a phrase and legal cover for religiously motivated murders. You couldn't call it blood atonement in court because that admits a religious motive, but you could call it mountain common law and just frame that shit as frontier justice. Now we are so deep in the rabbit hole. This is conspiracy level stuff. The white horse prophecy, the disputed prophecy attributed to Joseph Smith, supposedly given May 6th, 1843, and written down by Edwin Rushton, possibly even a decade later. It predicts that the US Constitution will one day hang by a thread as fine as a silk fiber and be on the verge of destruction. And at that critical moment, Mormons, represented as the white horse, will ride in and save it. The prophecy implies Mormons will establish a theocratic government and essentially take control of America to rescue it from collapse. The original version was much more explicit. It supposedly predicted economic collapse, civil unrest, and a possible civil war, a constitution under threat, Mormons as the elders of Israel saving the nation, and establishment of the kingdom of God on earth with Mormon leadership. It's very, very, very much, I'm the hero of my own movie type thing. In 1918, Joseph F. Smith, the church president and nephew of Joseph Smith, called the White Horse prophecy ridiculous, and the church officially disavows it, saying it's based on accounts that have not been substantiated by historical research and is not embraced as church doctrine. But it is pretty wild. And belief.
If Joseph Smith made the entire religion up, and he is the leader of the entire religion, and he is the person that was spoken to from God about the entire religion, and he set up everything and said this is how it's going to be and everyone has to do what he says, then how can you disavow part of what he says? It's just funny to me. It's convenience. Well, I don't like that piece. Yeah, we're not going to go with that one, but the polygamy, yeah, we like that. And I know that everybody focuses on the polygamy, but I don't think you guys understand that polygamy is crappy. The worst part is the predator behavior, the predators, the kids. That's the worst part. And then second to that is this absolute wackadoodle belief system of what it is they're achieving in the afterlife. I don't think anyone's addressed this yet. I'm dying for him to address it because their goals, the entire purpose of everything they're doing, they're putting up with, polygamy. They're putting up with people, predators. Okay, we'll put it that way. What's the end goal? Please tell me he addresses it. I'm really excited. If he doesn't, I will. I'm just at the end of the video. If he doesn't, I will.
Historical research and is not embraced as church doctrine, but it is pretty wild. And belief persists deeply in some aspects of Mormon culture, especially among more conservative members or fundamentalists. It seems that some Mormons today genuinely believe that they are destined to save America from itself, but I don't know if that's actually true, but you could point to political polarization, economic instability, and social unrest as signs of this white horse prophecy. They prepare food storage, guns, and survival gear, and wait for the moment in which God will call them to establish the new government, the new theocratic government, where they're probably going to kill me, to be honest. Church leaders distance themselves publicly because it sounds crazy and hurts genuine, actual good missionary work, but they don't forcefully condemn members who believe it. Because the prophecy,
and yet their core value of what their goal is in the afterlife is not a little bit crazy. Okay.
aligns fairly well with other more formal and officially accepted Mormon doctrines about establishing Zion, building the kingdom of God, and eventually governing the world during the millennium. That's the official Mormon belief. So if a significant percentage of Mormons believe they're prophesized to take over the US government in a moment of crisis, what happens when they perceive that that crisis has arrived? I really don't know, dude, but hopefully I'm on their side. That's all I can see, because they're scary, and Mormon folk are scary as shit up there. Come on now. This is a more fun, classic one. Becoming gods and the planet Kolob, which is very close.
There it is. Okay, so you guys ready for this one? You're not ready for this one. If you don't know about this, this is going to make you go, what in the actual holy hell? Like literally holy hell, get it? So remember that this is a religion that was initially based on Christianity. It's an offshoot of Christianity, right? It's supposed to be like a side quest, not a side quest, but like a spinoff. Okay, Joseph Smith, the angel came to him and was like, here, this is how you need to proceed as, God and things, right? Right? Listen to this shit. Listen to this shit.
More fun, classic one. Becoming gods and the planet Kolob, which is very close to my name. Mormon theology teaches eternal progression, the idea that humans can become gods. Lorenzo Snow, the fifth church president, famously summarized it as follows: as a man now is, God once was. As God now is, man may be. So God the Father.
Kamala? Did Kamala write that? As today was yesterday. Tomorrow will be yesterday, the day after today. What? Bitch, what? Her cackle. Did she write that? Sorry. As man now is, God once was. As God now is, man may be. In other words, God used to be a man, and you can become God. That's what that says, basically. So God is not God. God is not almighty. God is not whatever the word is for like all powerful, like you basically, you can be a god. God is you. You are God.
Now is, God once was. As God now is, man may be. So God the Father was once a mortal man like you. He lived on another planet, died, was resurrected, achieved exaltation, and became God of this universe. He has a physical body. He lives near a star or planet called Kolob with his goddess wives, plural, because God practices polygamy. And if you're a faithful Mormon who receives temple endowment, maintains worthiness, and achieves exaltation to the highest degree of the celestial kingdom, you can also get your own shit. You can become a god. You get your own planet or universe. Your wife becomes a goddess, though she is still subordinate to you. And together, you and your goddess subordinate wife can create spirit children for eternity. Billions upon billions of souls who will populate your world and worship you as their god. That sounds like an easy sell to a lot of people. Those spirit children are sent to your planet to receive bodies, be tested in mortality, and progress towards their own godhood. The cycle continues on forever. That's the explanation. It's kind of an awesome explanation, like science fiction wise, but so God creates spirit children who become mortals and who become gods, and that creates more spirit children. Kolob appears in the infamous Book of Abraham, and it's described as the star/planet nearest to God's throne, where time operates differently, and one Kolob day equals 1,000 Earth years. And some interpretations suggest Kolob is where God lives, and others say it's just the star nearest his planet where he lives. The current church position is to downplay this doctrine publicly, which is their position for a lot of things. And when Mitt Romney ran for president, church representatives told media that this isn't emphasized, but it's still in their scriptures. Doctrine and Covenants 132 in the Book of Abraham. It's still taught in temples and still core Mormon theology. Now, if you
it is the literal purpose of the entire religion is to ascend into your godhood. Not women. We don't talk about that, because women, you seal yourselves to a man so that you don't get left behind. And if you don't, then you end up in the afterlife alone or nowhere. I don't know where you end up. I didn't really look into that. And that's why they seal themselves to marry as many women as they can. They seal themselves because they can't marry legally, all these people. But church marriage is sealing. And they seal themselves to as many as they can so they can procreate as much as they can on Earth so that they can build. Now, here's where it cracks me up, because this is the whole woke ideology. And I'm talking about like in the thought processes, like illogical. I'm not talking about woke like the actual subject matter. My sociology teacher said that new age thinking, okay? My perception is reality. What happens when my perception and your perception clash? You're thinking of the old way. God, you just don't get it. And then they don't ever answer. So here's the thing. What happens when all of your children, right? So your wives, right? You're the God on your planet. And your women all come with you. And all of your children, they come with you. Okay? So what happens when your child, who's supposed to be on your planet, because this is your planet, that's why you married all these women, so all of your children could come with you. All of them could come with you to your planet, okay? What happens when your son grows up and he marries a bunch of wives? He wants his own planet, but no, he's on your planet. But no, he's on his planet, in his world. That's why he's marrying all these wives, so that he can be on his own planet and he could rule just like you did. But he's supposed to be on your planet because all of your children end up on your planet with your wives and you in charge. Well, that's what they tell him. That's what you taught him growing up. He gets his own planet. So which is it? Does he end up on your planet, or is he on his own planet? None of it matters. And if you question it, they just brush it like that's not the core purpose of the religion. No, that is the literal purpose of the religion, is the end result. The end result is everlasting life, right? Is the afterlife. It is how you will spend eternity. Right? So it is absolutely relevant. It is literally the reason for everything leading up to it. Everything that they do is supposed to revolve around this, your afterlife, correct? That's how religions work. Literally, that's how they work. You believe in reincarnation. The entire purpose of your life and how you behave is so that you'll be reincarnated in a more positive situation next time. And hopefully you won't be a bug or something, right? Right? Or like a platypus, because that's just weird. So my point is that everything conflicts with each other, but if anyone questions it, they're ostracized, they're kicked out, they're excommunicated. And one of the things that they've made it is that one of the scariest things that can happen is you be excommunicated from the church, because then your family has to turn their back on you. They're not allowed to talk to you. They're not allowed to affiliate with you. Not allowed to socialize with you. So you would lose your community, your family, everything you know, which keeps people in line. Even with the wackadoo backstory that makes no sense.
In the Book of Abraham, still taught in temples and still core Mormon theology. Now, if you read comments on any kind of Mormon video on YouTube or Reels or TikTok, you'll see that Mormons are like, this is bullshit. But it's not. I mean, it is. But it's like, it's not though. So there's an infinite regress of gods. God is a God who has a God going back forever and forever forward, and you become a God and your children become gods and their children become gods, all creating and populating infinite universes of spirit children and gods and goddesses and subordinate women. Now this is polytheism. This is nothing like traditional Christian theology. Mormons say they only worship one God, the God of this universe, and the fact that he's not the ultimate supreme being doesn't change their worship. But South Park has an episode, the Mormon episode, where they pretty much pinned the tail on the donkey for this one, guys. It was pretty epic. How about the three Nephites and Immortal John, a Mormon superhero of epic Mormon folklore? The Book of Mormon describes three Nephite disciples granted immortality by Christ around 34 AD. They're still wandering the earth, doing good deeds, waiting for the second coming, and they're basically Mormon superheroes. They appear in moments of crisis and then vanish. Mormons love telling stories about these fellas. Guy runs out of gas on a desert highway. Mysterious old man appears with a gas can and then disappears before being thanked. Woman about to be robbed, strange figure intervenes, attacker runs away, figure vanishes. Car breaks down in a blizzard, family rescued by three men who fix it, then refuse payment and walk into the storm. No tracks left in the snow. Mormon superhero. It's Mormon urban legend culture. The stories always follow the same pattern: the crisis, mysterious helper, disappearance, and then realization it must have been one of the three Nephites. That's what the mysterious stranger in Fallout is. It's actually Mormon folklore. They also believe that the Apostle John from the Bible never died and that Jesus granted him immortality. So there are at least 4 immortal guys wandering around helping Mormons change tires and jumpstart their dead batteries. Now, the church doesn't officially encourage these stories, but also doesn't discourage them because they're a good bit of Mormon fun. How about a little mini LDS NSA stuff? Internal church surveillance departments monitor members' writings, speeches, teachings, and social media, and they create files on apostates, members, intellectuals, feminists, and LGBTQ plus advocates. This surveillance and gathering of data has led to disciplinary councils and excommunications of historians, scholars, and feminist leaders from Mormonism. This operates in secrecy and is completely 100% Orwellian. People are always so afraid of the CIA and the NSA and all that shit, but like, there hasn't been any council shit from the NSA. Mormons are doing that to their own people, like actively. And this office is called the Strengthening Church Members Committee, and it's officially referred to as a research department. And critics, they just say it is exactly what it is, which is a surveillance group that spies on church members. And the church doesn't really say much about it. We've talked about Mormon fundamentalism and the dark.
Before he goes any further, I'm going to say something. The gay and lesbian and that's not welcome in this religion. Sure. Okay. Sure. Oh yes, I'm gay and Mormon. Cool. Yeah. Bullshit. Because I'm telling you, that is the social Mormons, right? Because their fundamental doctrines are racist and homophobic. Period. There is no acceptance. You can't procreate. Therefore, you can never fulfill your purpose on this earth, which is to seal yourselves to multiple women or whatever, and then procreate. That is literally the purpose. To further the religion, that's the purpose. You cannot fulfill the purpose. Therefore, you unfortunately don't count. Sorry, not sorry. That's just how it is. And I'm not against, you do it, you boink who you want to boink. I don't give a crap. That's none of my damn business. But for people to be like, oh well, yeah, you know, I'm definitely Mormon, and it's like, no, the core. Well, I'm sure that they would just disavow some of those doctrines that say that you have to procreate in order to be a successful Mormon. I'm sure they'll just disavow that conveniently, or just not address it. Be like, sure. We don't want to look like we're not progressive, do we? Do we? We're not, but you know, of course we still believe in all the bullshit. It's so frustrating. It is so frustrating. Yes, we accept the LGBT community. Come on in. What? No, they don't. They have very strict and set rules about these things. Oh, unless the church has changed that too. Disavowed that too, their core beliefs. Cool, got you.
Eyes on church members, and the church doesn't really say much about it. We've talked about Mormon fundamentalism and the dark sides of it, and there's another example of this with the story of Elizabeth Smart. On June 5th, 2002, 14-year-old Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped from her bedroom in Salt Lake City by Brian David Mitchell, a homeless street preacher and self-proclaimed prophet. Mitchell had previously been hired by the Smart family to do handyman work at their home, and he knew the layout. And Mitchell was born into a mainstream LDS family and later developed extreme religious views influenced by fundamentalist Mormon groups that embraced plural marriage. He'd been excommunicated from the LDS Church, and in November of 2000, he claimed to receive a revelation that he was the prophet Emmanuel and that God commanded him to restore polygamy. He also wrote his own scripture, the book of Emmanuel, David, Isaiah, claiming that God commanded him to take 7 wives between ages 10 and 14, and the document explicitly referenced Mormon scriptures and Joseph Smith's teachings about plural marriage. Mitchell broke into...
So there you go. He specifically targeted a certain age group based on the original founders' teachings and the fundamental building blocks of a religion, what it was based on. And yet people just keep, well, things change. But that's not how religion works, is it? I'm sorry. That's not how that works. That stuff doesn't just like, well, it just adapts with time. God's going to be like, oh, well, you know, no big deal. We change. We're cool. We're cool, right, guys? Basic fundamental. He's a fundamentalist. So he's basically saying, look, these are the building blocks. This is the non-conformist, devouring. It's bad. You know what I'm saying? Where the church disavows. The non-disavowed version. I'm going to go back to the basics, the original, the building blocks, and I'm going to do that shit. And then he does this shit. And people are like, oh, he's the outlier. Is he though? This is what the religion is based on. This is everything that it is based on. Now, I'm not saying that all religions have some spicy shit that, so I'm not saying that. I'm specifically talking about this specific situation, and it just makes, I'm so mad already, and I already know what's going to happen because I know the story, some of the story. Piece of crap.
Mormon scriptures and Joseph Smith's teachings about plural marriage. Mitchell broke into the Smart home with a knife, held it to Elizabeth's throat, and forced her to leave with him, and he took her to a camp in the mountains where he married her in a bizarre fundamentalist ceremony. Elizabeth had to endure 9 months of captivity where she was countless times. And Mitchell controlled her through religious manipulation, telling her that God wanted this and that she was fulfilling a prophecy, that she was now impure and her family wouldn't want her back. And he and his wife, Wanda Barzee, took Elizabeth in public, sometimes even in disguise, in plain sight. People saw her but didn't recognize her, or they chose not to intervene. Then March 12, 2003.
By the way, Wanda, you piece of crap. I don't care if you've been brainwashed. I don't care. You participate and you help groom and do all. No, you're just as much a piece of shit as he was.
Her, but didn't recognize her, or they chose not to intervene. Then March 12, 2003, Elizabeth was rescued in Sandy, Utah after being recognized on the street. Mitchell's defense claimed that he was mentally ill and incompetent to stand trial, and after years of delays and evaluations, he was deemed competent in 2010 and convicted in 2011 of kidnapping and sexual assault. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole, and he did all of this through the justification of Mormon fundamentalism. Speaking more about fundamentalism, is there is plenty of fundamentalist groups in the United States and other countries where blood atonement is still something that's practiced. We have no idea how many murders have been, or honor killings have been unreported or committed under the blood atonement belief. Just, we have no idea about it. Fundamentalism of all kinds when it comes to an ancient religion, even one as new as Mormonism, is scary. This is an event that I did not know about at all and is a result of most man-made institutions where people have control over children. This is not specific just to Mormonism. The Catholic Church has had, the Boy Scouts have had their own problems, the United States government, rich people, that island and shit. This is a real problem with humanity in general. So this is obviously not a Mormon specific thing, but in August of 22, the Associated Press published an explosive investigation revealing the Mormon Church's helpline system that enabled cover-ups of child sexual exploitation and abuse for decades. The system was when bishops, which were lay leaders, learn of abuse, they're instructed to call a church helpline, which is staffed by church attorneys. The attorneys often invoke clergy and penitent privilege and advise bishops not to report abuse to law enforcement, even in states with mandatory reporting laws. This is very similar to what happened to Catholicism in the 20th century. Then an Arizona case broke it open. A father in Bisbee, Arizona confessed to his bishop in 2011 that he'd been sexually abusing his young daughter, and the bishop called the helpline. Church attorneys told him he didn't have to report it, and the abuse continued for 7 more years, eventually including a second daughter born during this period. When the abuse finally came to light in 2017, the father was arrested and the daughter's mother sued the church. Sealed court documents were obtained by the Associated Press that showed the church had destroyed records of helpline calls to ensure confidentiality and claimed attorney-client privilege for all abuse reports, which is definitely up. I know I belittled all this as not a big, this is a human problem though. This isn't just specifically Mormonism. This is a gigantic issue. These institutions make it way easier. Nearly 12,000 pages of documents revealed the helpline is basically designed to divert those accusations away from law enforcement and towards church attorneys who can bury them. So victims are left in harm's way while the church just protects itself from liability and scandal. The church's...
Can you imagine having this happen and then you have somewhere to beg for help and you get no help? And then it's just, imagine it's a sense of despair.
Response accused AP of oversimplified and incomplete reporting, claiming the helpline protects victims, but the documents that we have tell a different story. Since then, multiple state legislatures have introduced bills to eliminate clergy penitent privilege exemptions for child abuse, and the Mormon Church has still actively lobbied against them, which is, you know, trying to be as unbiased as possible, but still, that's very up. Have you ever heard of the November 2015 policy? A new policy was leaked declaring same-sex married couples as apostates subject to church discipline. Their children were banned from baptism, baby blessings, and church membership until age 18, and only then if they disavow their parents' relationships and move out. The policy is insane.
Tell me, there's gay Mormons again?
And devastating. It punishes children for their parents' relationships and LGBTQ members. As a result of this, a lot of people resigned their memberships in protest, and suicide rates even spiked during that time as well, reportedly. Church President Russell M. Nelson, who was the apostle at that time, went on record defending the policy as a revelation from God. He said it was given with a lot of pain and with a lot of prayer, and was intended to protect children from being torn between church teachings and their parents. So, pretty epic. April 4th, 2019, the church reversed their policy, 41 months.
Couple years, no big deal. We'll just, I guess that wasn't a very popular take, so we're going to walk that one back. That's what they do. Sure. Trust the church. I guess that wasn't a really good PR campaign, so, I mean, it's what we believe, but we're just going to, like, not tell anyone about it. Just let people not get to rule their own planet in the afterlife. We're just not gonna say anything.
Pretty epic. April 4th, 2019, the church reversed their policy 41 months after implementing it. Then, the same church president at the time announced that the reversal was another revelation from God. So the same leader who defended the policy as revelation now defends the reversing as revelation. I don't know, dude. God's watching up there. A couple years went by. He changed his mind. All right.
Remember, God is man. Man is God. Man can be God. God used to be man. So therefore, God is fallible. You know, what is fallible? Fallible? He can make mistakes, which is against everything that any Christian faith has when it comes to God. So they've kind of, they've bastardized God a little bit. They've kind of like dumped him down to be like as if they're equal to God. As if they have anyway. We worship God, but you know, he's fickle and doesn't know what he wants. I'll have to interpret for him, you know, because I'm going to be a God anyway. So, you know, might as well listen to me now. Weird.
This revelation, I don't know, dude. God's watching up there. A couple years went by. He changed his mind. All right. Them gays, they added that plus to the end. Okay. That's different now. Come on.
What?
He's learning just like us. We are officially at the very bottom of the rabbit hole. Okay, guys. And the CIA has an overrepresentation of Mormons. And this is very real. The intelligence pipeline has a disproportionate number of Mormons in the CIA, the FBI, and intelligence agencies. It's not a conspiracy theory. This is real. It's documented. Yeah. The CIA actively recruits from BYU, as they do from many other universities, but foreign language skills from missions are a massive plus point for Mormons. 2 years abroad, often in hostile countries, learning difficult languages, obedience to authority without question, clean-cut image, no drug history, strong family values, patriotism baked into theology. They are ideal intelligence operative traits. Bootlickers. But it does create an interesting dynamic. You get a religious group with theocratic political ambitions, the White Horse Prophecy, Council of 50 History, the Theodemocracy Doctrine, etc. Is when these people are overrepresented in agencies that collect intelligence, conduct covert operations, and influence global policy, it's kind of scary. It's kind of like being infiltrated, all right, guys? I feel like this is a result of meritocracy, I would say, intelligence agencies recruiting from populations that align with what they want, and Mormons happen to fit the profile on average. So, you know, it does make sense. And I'd like to believe their oaths to the United States of America take precedence to their oaths to the thousands of Mormon gods, or whatever, Joseph Smith and all that stuff. So hopefully Mormon intelligence officers report to the people they're supposed to report to, not church leadership. How about them gold plates again? Joseph Smith claimed 2/3 of the gold plates were sealed and never translated, and they supposedly contain final revelations too sacred for the current world. Various people have claimed to translate the sealed portions, and multiple books have published claiming to be the sealed portion, and most famously, The Sealed Portion, the Final Testament of Jesus Christ by Christopher Nemelka. The LDS Church rejects all of these, but that creates an ongoing mystery. What was supposedly sealed in the other portion of the plates? And why weren't they translated, Joseph Smith? We could ask him, but he was killed by a mob. How about the lost 10 tribes of space? Some Mormons believe that the lost 10 tribes of Israel are in space. Not metaphorically, but actually in space. Mormons love space. The theory is that when Assyrians conquered Israel in 722 BC, 10 tribes disappeared. Where did they go? According to some Mormon interpretations, God transported them to another planet or dimension. They're living there right now, waiting to return at the second coming of Christ, I guess. But there's also an alternate version. They're beneath the North Pole in the hollow earth. It all comes full circle. I'm serious. There's a whole subset of Mormon folklore about the earth being hollow with the lost tribes living inside, access through an opening at the North Pole. This is Admiral Richard Byrd. This is like straight up Nazi shit, dude. They're Hyperborea out there. Are you kidding me? This theory stems from Doctrine and Covenants 133:26-34, which describes the lost tribes returning from the North countries and causing mountains to flow down and valleys to be exalted. And some members interpret North countries literally as the North Pole. Others interpret the cosmic language as describing space travel. This is not official church doctrine, but it was taught by prominent early leaders and is still believed by many members. Brigham Young taught that the 10 tribes were on a portion of the earth that broke off, and Apostle James E. Talmage wrote about it. It's in the cultural DNA of Mormonism. The church doesn't officially address this because it is batshit. And it's easier.
If you can't explain it, and if it's not a good PR look, they just don't address it. The church won't address it. They're just like mid question. I'm not I'm not answering that. That's what they do. They just deflect. They're like, we don't want to talk about that because it'll make us look bad. So we're just not going to. And then all of our members just have to deal with that. By the way, they are definitely a good place for recruitment because when you co-sign into this type of religion and all of these rituals and all of this information that is frankly batshit crazy, okay, unless you believe it, I would assume that, that's a malleable, gullible type of person that would join. So, I mean, I could see why they would recruit from their ranks.
Church doesn't officially address this because it is batshit. And it's easier to let it remain as ambiguous folklore that sounds vaguely spiritual until you think about the implication of space Jews, the hollow earth and all that stuff. Mormonism, pretty crazy. We know that churches have a lot of money. They don't have to pay taxes in the United States of America. Scientology is one of the largest landholders in the world. Mormonism, pretty up there as well. The City Creek Mall is a $1.5 billion shopping center. And in 2012, the Latter-day Saints Church opened City Creek Center, a luxury shopping mall in downtown Salt Lake City that cost $1.5 billion, in which the church funded the entire project. The church claimed no tithing funds were used, only interest from investments. But that investment fund was built with tithing. The distinction between tithing principle and interest earned from tithing is kind of dumb. It's pretty much a semantic thing. Like if I had $1 million I earned and then I invested it and then I spent the $1 million that I earned, it's still my money that I earned, right? Right? Because you're taking advantage. I mean, it's still tithings. It's member donations. It only exists because of the member donations. I don't really understand it, but context is very important. From 1985 to 2016, the church spent an average of $40 million annually on humanitarian aid, which is very impressive. And that's another thing that is true about the Catholic Church, in which, the Vatican video that I made. There's a lot of charitable and humanitarian energy that comes from churches in general. But back to the Mormon time frame of 31 years, total humanitarian spending was roughly $1.2 billion. And then in 2012, they built a mall that was $1.5 billion. So their humanitarian aid, very impressive, $1.2 billion. That's a lot of money. But they built a mall for the same. I built a mall. Do I help the sick and displaced? No, I built a mall. This was also on the heels of the 2008 housing crisis and recession that persisted during that time. Members were losing homes and jobs, and the church was spending $1.5 billion on a mall. And the church owns the land, the building, and collects rent from these epic luxury retailers tax-free. In 2011, whistleblower documents also revealed that the church used approximately $600 million from the same investment fund to bail out Beneficial Life Insurance Company, which is a church-owned for-profit business. So yeah, they just like making money a lot, it seems. And I feel like you should be able to do that. You shouldn't be able to have a church that's just... No wonder they stay in from the society benefits. You just get a bunch of money, seems like. Luckily, recent years have seen increased humanitarian spending. For example, $1.45 billion in 2024 alone, which is still a fraction of the $100+ billion investment portfolio that grows faster than they spend it, of course, in the Mormon coffers. Now, the very bottom of the rabbit hole, the real estate empire of the Church of Latter-day Saints. I feel like this is just so... I just can't understand how you can contend with this. Like, if you're so... The church shouldn't... I don't know. Why does the IRS allow this stuff? We get and you just join a church, you start a church, and you're just cool, and you can you can have a real estate empire. The Latter-day Saints Church is one of the largest private landowners in America. They hold 2% of Florida. Okay, that's crazy. They have another 1 million acres across the western United States and commercial real estate in nearly every major city, along with agricultural operations generating hundreds of millions of dollars annually. Much of this is held through shell companies and subsidiaries like Ag Reserves Incorporated, or Deseret Ranches, Property Reserve Inc. The average member of the Church of Latter-day Saints has no idea that their church operates a multi-billion-dollar real estate empire. And all of this is tax exempt as religious holdings. The agricultural and commercial operations generate massive revenue and are also tax exempt because they're church owned. And it comes down to the classic argument. Is this a religion or a real estate corporation with a religious division? All right, guys, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of this video. Hopefully I wasn't too harsh. It's very difficult for me to tread the line and try not to be funny. I try to be funny and entertaining, but also be truthful and non-biased and objective as I can, and also treat serious things with, you know, a level of actual seriousness that they deserve. So I'm not sure. This video probably make people mad, but I don't really care that much. I just hope that it was in some way insightful, entertaining, and you learned something. I have no idea. Anyways, go to the Gump Club, gump.club, to watch behind the scenes footage, some epic behind the scenes stuff that you will not see on the main channel. Subscribe to one of my other channels where we're filming a little mockumentary about making a video game, in which we are actually making a video game. The mockumentary is for fun, but the video game is real. And also go to sour.gg to buy some candy. We have a candy company that is not tax exempt because we are not a religious organization, but we're thinking about it. So anyways, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate everybody who watches these videos and enjoys. I'll see you in the next one. Don't I look healthy?
Oh, fuck. So that happened. What did you guys think? This is something I love hearing about because I just know how insane it is. It's really, really crazy. It's really crazy. Anyway, that being said, super awkward, unprofessional outro, you guys. I think that this video is long enough. I'm not going to keep you any longer. Yeah. Take care of yourselves and each other. Remember that you're valid and you matter. Don't let anyone tell you different. And good Lord have mercy. Please, 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 please know what you're getting into before you sign up for a religion. And like, yeah. I don't know. It's to me, it's so ludicrous. I just can't imagine anyone being like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, no, that's just, you know, some people say that there's like planets and stuff, but, you know, we don't really think about that. Not too much. It's only our entire afterlife and the goal of the religion. Cool. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. I'm out of here. This was a good video. I liked it. He did a lot of research, which I appreciate. And he stayed way more unbiased than I did. All right, let's go.